Hello, you have your ticket? Oh, no problem. Just click the subscription button below and then come on in. Greetings, everyone. DFG here, Gideon's Flight. Hey, guys, day 24 now with the government shutdown. And I thought that I would take a little time today and just kind of share some information in terms of the government shutdown and what areas of the government that's being affected. A lot of you probably know this information already, but it is a partial shutdown. So, and what I mean by being a partial shutdown, obviously some areas are open, some areas are not. I'll give you an example. If you looked at the areas that are open, defense, which is not surprising because, as you already know, we spend in the neighborhood of about 600 to 700 billion dollars a year making sure that Boeing and Northrop Grumman and General Dynamics, all of these, big military defense corporations, we make sure that, we keep them in pretty good shape financially. You know what I'm saying? So, that's you and I, by the way. That's our tax dollars. So that's one of them. And I didn't mean to drag on with that one. The other area that's still open is labor, education, health and human services, energy, and then Veterans Affairs. So those areas are not being affected by the shutdown. Areas that are being affected by the shutdown is the Commerce departments, all departments of Commerce, Interior, State, Transportation, Agriculture, Justice Department, Homeland Security, which is very, very serious, Treasury, and then last and not least is HUD, Housing and Urban Development. And the one I want to talk about, I want to elaborate on is HUD, Housing and Urban Development. Now, you may or may not know these facts, but about 7 million families today here in our country are being assisted with their living costs. In essence, when you start looking at Section 8, when you start looking at public housing, and then you start looking at vouchers for housing, that affect right about 7 million families. And this program is so important, with a cost of about $60 billion a year. We give $70 billion away every year, $74 billion, let me be exact here, close to exact as I can be, to foreign, governments, okay? But it costs you and I about $60 billion a year to help those who are in need or the poor. And, a friend of mine mentioned to me, and you know what, he was right. A lot of times when we talk about the poor, at least a lot of my communication has been towards poor, obviously it's concerned about people of color, copper-colored people, Native Americans. But as a good friend of mine reminded me, Americans disproportionately are poor. Okay, and when I say Americans, I'm not only talking about, copper-colored people, but white Americans are also being affected by this. White Americans also are poor. And I think sometimes there's a misnomer because, when we look at, television and mainstream media, they use propaganda, propagate, these beautiful homes and beautiful people in these homes, and typically they're white people. So it's easy for us to get the impression that whites don't have a plight. Whites are not struggling. That everything they got it made in the shade. Lie, lie, lie. Okay? Whites are out here struggling as well, especially when you start looking at the way the government functions and who pays into the government. Now, obviously, whites pay more into the government because you're talking about a 60% population. If you didn't have whites in America, America wouldn't be America financially. All right? Whites pay by far the largest proportion of our tax dollars. There's no question about that. If a person is working or has any kind of income coming in, then that person, he's by their own labor, that's not being assisted by the government, they are paying taxes. So, so when we talk about, the closing of the government, we talk about border control, when we start talking about who finances what, who pays into the pot. We cannot pretend that white Americans do not assist in this area. It's ridiculous. It's child's play. And any informed, intelligent human being, should understand that. When I was a kid, my dad used to always tell us, if you don't put anything in the pot, you don't take anything out of the pot. Again, if you don't put anything in the pot, you don't take anything out of the pot. And so when you look at who puts a large proportion of the dollars in the tax pot that we benefit from as American citizens, then, we have to remember that whites paid their fair share as well. Okay? We're not talking about corporate corruption, and we're not talking about individual swindlers and Wall Street thieves and hoodlums. We're not talking about them. We're talking about the average Joe, the average Jane Doe, the average John Doe. We cannot leave them out of the poverty conversation because in many cases they're just as poor as we are, as people of color. Okay? So that being said, when you look at, now I'm gonna move back, I'm still with HUD. When you look at the housing assistance, and you're talking about probably 50% of the people who get housing assistance are the elderly people, senior citizens. And the other portion of that are people with families, children. And again, we can criticize those who may be getting assistance all we want. But did you know that 3 out of 4 children, or 3 out of 4 families would be in poverty if it was not for housing assistance? So we have to provide that service unless we're going to perpetuate the poverty situation, or we're going to exaggerate it to the point where we would not have a government, a functional government, and truly it would be chaos in the streets. I digress. So let's go back now and talk about the government shutdown. We talked about HUD being a big part of, what's being affected by the government shutdown. Here's some other facts that you may already know. Every year, including last year, do you know how many illegals came across our borders? You listen to the news or some of these propaganda news, CNN fake news. I know that's probably going to piss some of you guys off of me saying that, but if you listen to CNN with a clear, open mind, I don't know how you could not see that's propaganda. But, it's America, right? You listen to what you want to listen to. But if you listen to them, you think it's 300 or 400 people a day. No, the real number is 397,000 illegal aliens coming to this country, illegal immigrants coming to this country every single year. That's almost 500,000 people. Now let's extrapolate that number. So that's in the course of 1 decade, 10 years, you're talking about 5 million people coming in here with no resources into this country. And this is with border control. So you can imagine if we didn't have anything, that multiplier could be indefinite. Infinitive, I'm sorry. But when you start looking at that, so when these individuals come into the country with no resources, of course they're going to take jobs that, most Americans, would prefer not to take, but probably would take them if they had no other choice. And so they fill in that gap that's sitting there. But here's the catch with that gap. If you're illegal, you cannot work legally. So that means you're working under the table, as they say, you're getting paid under the table. Okay, fine. You're working. But do you realize that illegal aliens are not paying taxes on their income? And not only are not paying taxes on their income, your taxes is taking care of them while they're working without paying taxes on that income. Now, if you're the rich, you don't have a problem with that. You own a subway station, a subway shop, or you own a little small business somewhere, or a sweet shop, convenience store. We call them sweet shops down south, convenience stores. Then, of course, you're like, yeah, come on in. Because you can pay them slave wages, and they'll take anything because, at the end of the day, they have no option there. All right? But if other people who are paying taxes like myself, truth be told, one year I paid $70,000 in taxes. Just in income tax, $70,000. So if you're those individuals, small businesses who are hiring illegals, of course it's no problem for you. But what about the rest of us who have to bear that cost because of your negligence, because the fact that you want to do things the legal way? And so you guys who over here are saying do not protect these borders, do you know that you're financing your own devastation? Get a little Bible on you. Proverbs 22:16 says that. Let me read it quote unquote to you. Okay, it says, "He that oppresseth the poor to increase his riches, and he that giveth to the rich shall surely come to poverty." He that oppresseth the poor to increase riches, talking about you are hiring illegals, and give it to the rich, talking about us who are paying for you to be able to do that, will surely come to poverty. It's no wonder the United States is in a $22-23 trillion deficit because of illegals and those who refuse to respect the law. Not just the illegals, those who hire them. So if you're an illegal immigrant, I'm not attacking you. I'm just giving you the facts. At the end of the day, you know as well as I know that financially you wouldn't foot that cost. You would not, as an illegal, allow me to come out and use you and not compensate you. Take advantage of you or take advantage of your family, so you would never tolerate that. So expecting Americans to tolerate that, like we have some type of halo over our heads. Our last name is not Christ. Okay? They're Greens and Johnsons and Smiths and Williams and others. Okay? We work hard for our money. And we need our money to go into resources that we can benefit from so that we can sustain and survive. If anything, you can use our government as a model for your government and figure out how to get your government to the standard that our government has established. Okay, that's a little preachy about that. Can I move along? Can I have your permission? Well, let's see here. Can I take about another 2 minutes? I'm going to say this again. I said it before. Right now, the government shutdown is affecting about almost 900,000 people now and counting. And that's not ancillary businesses. That's not businesses who are being affected because these people are not working. So that number can be, again, you can extrapolate that number. You could be talking about 20, 30 million people. You know what I'm saying? Talking about how it affects them economically. I mean, because if they don't have the money to spend at Walmart, then Walmart is not going to have the hours to give to the people who work at Walmart. And you can do that all over the place, all right? So keeping that in mind, I just want to say this to you real quick. Save your money. Hold on to your money. Do not waste money. We got another set of holidays coming up. I would not be out there spending the money in these retailers. And I know some of you guys are going to say, well, wait a minute. If we don't spend money in retail, then aren't we hurting the economy? Well, I'm going to ask you a question. This past Christmas, most of the gifts and things that you bought, who made them? Where were they manufactured? If you're not sure, I want you to go, when you get off this video, when you turn me off, go look at the label, go look at the tags. See how many of those items were made in China or elsewhere. So don't give me the whole pitch about it's going to hurt jobs in America if you don't go out there and do business with these retailers. These retailers are doing business with the enemy. They're only using our people to service, their goods when they bring their goods here. So we're kind of like the mule for them. A drug mule? We're like the mule for them. Outside country produce it, give it to us, and we come out here and we peddle it. So no, they're not benefiting. And you look at how many retailers hired up for the holiday season. You'll find out real fast, most of these retailers did not hire up for the holiday season. They used the same labor. All they did was increase their profitability. So it's interesting when you hear companies like Target and some of the other, we had a great retail. Yeah, I guess you did. You worked the hell out of the people in your damn corporation. People working 40, 50, not 40 because that's normal now, but 50, 60, 70 hours a week, killing themselves, neglecting their families, just to make your shareholders and your owners wealthy and rich. Again, it's a foolish man or a man who's not wise, who doesn't have resources, to give his resources to someone who does have them. All he does is bring poverty to themselves or himself. Hold on to your resources this next few holiday seasons. You follow me? And if anything, force those retailers to start going back and reinvesting in American goods. Now, if you really want to get down to the nuts and bolts of it, force them to manufacture, produce, and sell right here in America. Then you're talking about something that's real. That's real talk. That's all I have for you. I can go on and on and on. I know you love me. I know you want to hear me talk some more. Or maybe you don't. Thank you guys for listening. Love you guys. Don't forget to subscribe. DFG, Getting Flight. Bye now.